Welcome to Digitally Fit with Sonia Plum Dance Company here in the home office, home studios of Sonia Plum Dance. We are in the inner room as opposed to the outer room where I actually do get to do my personalized classes and workouts and tondus and all that business. So with us today, I am so excited to have Brianne Dwyer and Ricki Stevenson. I met both of these lovely women when I first went to Magna Physical Therapy, knowing I had some serious issues to deal with on my left ankle. They had been chronic, and it was, a small sprain. I don't even think that was a big one, but I couldn't really dance anymore. I knew it needed to get taken care of. And I was so thankful to find them and to find Brianne, because I spent, I think, close to a year, or maybe it was a good 9 months, rehabilitating, being very, very good personally, good isn't necessarily the right word, but, I did my thing. I did what I was told, and I also got to talk with them. And I think I want to make sure we touch on that at the end, just how important it was to be in the vicinity of dancers and a dance community in order to heal. So I got through that, and then the day, I think 2 days after I was released, I broke my right ankle. So I spent more time in PT with these lovely ladies, and so I reached out because I think what's happening now in the world of dance, where we're stuck at home, and serious injuries can happen, or chronic injuries come up, or new ones get made. So I'm now going to let them introduce each of themselves. Ricki, you can start. Who you are and where you're from, what you do.
Awesome. Yes, I'm Ricki. I'm really excited to be here and talk with you all. A lot of what we're going to talk about today is not only things that, been research or in this field of dance medicine as far as from an intellectual side, but personal experience dancing at home and the struggle it can be. And so I'm just really excited to share that and kind of, get some feedback all in all too. But my background, I'm an athletic trainer, so that's within the realm of sports medicine. So I went to school working on, football players and everything in between, all the different ages and different sport types. But I always had a passion for dance because I've grown up performing and did all my research through that college career in dance medicine. So I was really excited to come up here and meet Brianne and Brian and everyone at Magna Physical Therapy and see that it's just really thriving up here. There's not only a lot in the research of dance medicine coming out, but there's people here in Connecticut that are really making a difference for dancers of all ages too. So I currently perform with Ekklesia Contemporary Ballet Company. I'm the assistant director, and so it's a small company, but we really get to do a lot in realms of not only classical ballet, but also more contemporary style, performing locally and also down into like North Carolina and a couple places as well. So by day, working with dancers in dance medicine, and on the other days, working with Ekklesia Contemporary Ballet. That's me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ricki. Brianne, it's your turn.
Great. So I'm Dr. Brianne Dwyer. I am a dance physical therapist. I kind of specialize with just dancers, but I see the gamut of populations. My background as well has been in dance. I grew up in Connecticut dancing for Mystic Ballet, and then I went to college for dance and psychology. Then I came back to Connecticut. I started working with the dance medicine program at Magna Physical Therapy. I was also dancing professionally locally in Hartford with a few of the companies around. And then I dedicated kind of solely, I transitioned out of performance and then went solely into PT, got my doctorate, and now I am working with the dance population, which is really awesome.
Wonderful. So, Brianne, I'm going to start you off with a question. Now that we're all online, trying to learn online through classes. And then my other question is trying to stay fit. What are you seeing? What are you seeing happening to dancers?
So from kind of the class standpoint, there's two things. They're either being reduced or they're being like reduced in frequency or reduced in duration. So then how are the dancers supposed to kind of stay up to the level that they've been training at through all of their previous years? So that's kind of been what dancers have been reaching out to me for, of a conditioning program, and how do they stay at the level that they've been trained at. So I've been talking with a bunch of dancers on conditioning programs, how to create conditioning programs and what elements to have in conditioning programs.
Wonderful. What can you say is like one of the most important things about conditioning in your
I think, well, during this time specifically, I think having several elements in your conditioning program, because you're not, right now, you might have been able to do a conditioning program in the studio. So then you could utilize things that you would have done in the past, whether it's the strengthening dance specific stuff, if you're able to work on things like pirouettes or your jumping, but now your studio may not be available to you. So then how do you create that conditioning program for yourself with the tools that you have? Because also gyms aren't open, or they are now starting to reopen, but you haven't had access during this time. So I've just been talking about some elements that people can utilize, whether it's from a strength component. So really targeting areas that you've had maybe multiple corrections from your instructors on, whether it's rolling in on your ankles or maintaining your turnout throughout your duration of your class. Okay, so now let's really target those strength components so that when you go back, you're even stronger than when you left. So this is a really good time to kind of focus on that. There's also things like power. So right now, a lot of dancers can't work on those power components. And what I mean by power is the ability to kind of exert a force over a short period of time. So that's it, like a jump. So you're not maybe able to do your grand allegro if you're a ballet dancer. So how do you then work on those power components? So I've been kind of breaking it down. I recently wrote a blog post on our website regarding changing it up a little bit. So maybe doing more cross conditioning. So maybe do like a jump squat with good kind of footwear, not so much our ballet shoes or barefoot, but like a good sneaker, or even turning it on its side and working on a physio ball. So then you can work on those kind of taking off or landing components, maybe the coordination that you need for like a faster petit allegro. So then you can kind of keep up those elements. So then when you return into the studio or for a performance, you don't have to work on everything, like regaining all of that strength or those power movements. You can work on just the other components once you're back in the studio, and it's not everything. So everything's kind of combated down a little bit. And then also another factor is endurance. So you're not able to maybe take a full, say if your dance class is like 90 minutes, you're not able to do that anymore. So then how do you keep up those endurance levels? So kind of working on that, whether it's from a cardiovascular standpoint or from a muscle endurance standpoint. So how many repetitions that your muscles can do of an exercise. So really challenging yourself of maybe doing up to like 25 repetitions versus just 8 or 10.
This is super, super helpful for me. Well, and especially because we're getting ready to go back on stage, and I know my dancers are gonna they're gonna need this information because I know what they have been doing and what they have not been doing. So thank you, Ricki. What advice differently, or what have you been focusing more on particularly in your own home studio? And you've been teaching more dance, is that true?
Yes, we're taking a bit of a break now, but all through quarantine up until, I think it was June 8th or 9th, somewhere around there. So quite a bit of time we were dancing and we were teaching with the company I'm a part of. So I totally agree with everything Brianne said. I think that this is a very unique time. And so as a whole, something that I've tried to remind myself and my students and my company members that I work with is that this shouldn't necessarily be seen as like a less time. I mean, it is in a lot of ways, but a way to more so come at this from a different way. So cross-training in general, one of the things that I would add to what Brianne said is just looking at that cardiovascular element. We, as dancers, research has shown that even when we're dancing our full time in the studio and jumping, because of the break intervals, it's still not quite adequate enough to really get us through performance over time, only in those rehearsal times. So normally we need some type of cardiovascular fitness outside of dance, but especially right now, I would say that that's something that really I want to personally focus on, and I think that as a whole we can. So some of what Brianne's saying about please wear proper shoes, don't just be doing lots of jumps on a floor that's not sprung, but maybe there's other ways to get that. I would say swimming normally, but right now COVID might affect that. So sometimes, or another thing, what I've been working on is there's just a lot of upper body cardiovascular strength that you can do, or kind of what Brianne was saying too, if you're doing it more on a circuit pace, there's a lot we can do to help strengthen muscular and work on muscular endurance and at the same time train cardiovascular. So that's what I would add to like what Brianne said. And then more to answer your question, what I found myself doing is when I'm teaching classes, I added a lot more into bar than normal. We had long classes, also because Zoom makes it difficult to communicate. But working on power, like Brianne was talking about, we might not be able to be doing as many jumps, but if we're doing a lot more dégagés and focusing on that pushing through action and the speed of it, you know, even up through grand battements, it's just if you change the focus a little bit, you can still work a lot of those elements that we might not have been able to really use in the home studio setting. So I think there's a lot that we can do. Something else that I've kind of adjusted my classes on are taking that step back, like we just talked about, but not, but also changing the focus of it. So like Brianne said, we can't really be doing maybe as many turns or jumps, but can we work on doing the small things perfectly or really, really well? And how are we able to balance not just getting up onto it, but the process of going onto your releve to really strengthen some of those intrinsic muscles on the bottom of your feet, and just finding where your pelvis is placed. For myself, if I just try to whip out turns in the studio, I might not be as focused as trying to just hold for 5 seconds, solid seconds in a pirouette, you know, passe position. So I think that it's easy to look at this as like, well, I want to do more and I can, I'm not, you know, not able to. And there's truth in that, but there's also a lot that we can do during this time from like a teaching side of adding into a heftier bar or focusing differently on the center, but also from a dancing side as far as getting outside conditioning, whether it's some of the exercises Brianne mentioned or just adding in cardiovascular cross training on another side. I think it's a good time in a lot of ways, even though it's frustrating. So
I think that's really interesting and important. I hadn't thought of that. The whole, you know, getting making a longer bar, even though it's kind of funny because the past few days I've been like, I just need to get on that releve and hold it or whatever. You're right. I mean, that whole push and everything, I think that's fascinating and really important. I tried to take one class and I knew I wasn't warmed up enough. And then I tried to take another and I was just like, I can't move. So it's frustrating and I can't see, you know, so I don't want to take a class if I'm frustrated. So knowing, because it's not going to help, but knowing that there's a reason and that, you know, then this makes sense. Like, okay, then I want to go to a teacher who's going to do that for me. And so it just reminds me even more that the correct teacher and that someone who's really thought about this instead of just hopping on and teaching. And I know we all have to figure it out, but I think this research is really, really important, this thoughtfulness that is going into into the work you're doing. Awesome. Okay, so now I have to go back to Brianne. What within the confines of a home studio, I guess, where someone might have a couch or a kitchen, or maybe there's an old Pilates ring. What are you finding are the most effective tools to use, and how are you some small hints, or what are you seeing working, and what are you seeing that might even be causing injury, new ones?
Yeah, so luckily during this time, because there's been fortunately and unfortunately, there's been a reduction. So a lot of people that have had injuries that may have been more of like acute overuse type things, we're not seeing those as much. But I have been seeing things from in regards to your last question, maybe some more of like shin splints, that type of thing, where you're getting kind of pain there just because of inadequate flooring. So I've had dancers that are maybe the only space that they have is in their basement. So that's going to be a concrete surface, which they've done studies is not great, because it doesn't have a good force reduction, meaning the impact coming back up through your body. So those more rigid floors have been shown to reduce kind of the kinematics and kinetics within, like, for our muscles and our joints, which can then lead to injury. So making sure that you can kind of adapt within your home, maybe if you do have the capability of creating a sprung floor, if you have the capability of, I know people have been really kind of creative during this time of those puzzle piece like gym mats, putting that, and then plywood, and then some kind of dance surface over top if you have some spare marley. So people have been really ingenious in that way. The only thing that I would really kind of cautious against is maybe your more non-compliant surfaces like tile, concrete, things like that. I've also found for in the home, like, I really encourage, you don't need a lot. So you can utilize what you already have. You don't need like the TheraBands, you don't need the weights, you don't need all of that kind of, so you can do stuff within your home with what you have with your own body resistance. While those things are definitely going to be helpful later on for the strength component, like to start out, you can do it with whatever you have. So I think that kind of, like, a bunch of people kind of shut down from creating a conditioning program for themselves because they don't have the tools to necessarily do your standard program. So I've just been encouraging people to really be creative during this time, really be thoughtful in their like body scanning of, okay, what muscles should I really be working on if I'm using my kitchen as my countertop, or like as your bar. So, okay, do I need to work on my calf endurance? Okay, let's just do a bunch of relevé, see how far I can go on both legs, on one leg. So then it doesn't have to be like in a gym, like ready to go. Like you can do whatever you have available, like in your home, as long as you have the proper kind of spacing so that you're not accidentally running into anything, causing something like an acute ankle sprain, or that making sure that it's on a good surface area is what I've been kind of recommending to a lot of my dancers.
Nice. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. So let's turn around and so that I'm thinking of like, okay, you're right? I didn't need to worry about all those other weights and stuff like that. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, the guys, they can certainly do a ton of push-ups and they can certainly lift a lot of things. There's plenty to lift around a house, isn't there?
That's true.
Ricki, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I mean, kind of touching on, touching on what you're saying, especially for guys, a lot of things that I found is a lack of shoulder mobility. So doing a lot more mobility exercises and asking for help from a dance medicine provider can definitely get you there if you're trying to decide where to go. But mobility and even kind of working up into a handstand, I think would really be helpful for gentlemen keeping that endurance and working into that as well. You just have to be careful that you're not causing back issues if you're doing things incorrectly, like if you don't have that shoulder mobility. So just going that direction. And then to touch base on the setup of like someplace as you're dancing, I think something that I would like to add in, or something that I found for myself, is being aware that when you're dancing on a surface that isn't marly, isn't necessarily sprung floor, not only should you be wary of like how much you're jumping on it or not at all, but also how much turnout you have. In general, dancers get a lot of turnout, or they force their turnout from those ankles, and we could talk for days about the injuries that that can cause. But especially I found when you've been on something like a surface that's really slippery, I found myself kind of gripping a little bit more, or it just changing where my weight is placed and getting a lot more tension in my knees and in my ankles and in my hips to try and prevent myself from slipping. Whereas if I just decrease that turnout to the place that I should probably be at most days, it's really helped me keep my alignment correct and avoid some of those pains. The other thing to consider is dancing on carpet can be good if there's like a little cushion there for you. But if you're doing tendus, for myself, again, I've gone through a lot of different floor types to try and figure this out.
Great.
But I found for myself is I wasn't really able to push into my tendu, for example, or dégagés or anything from there. And so by trying to skim the surface instead, I used a lot more muscles on the front of the leg instead of the back of the leg, something called, your hip flexors, instead of using that posterior chain, which is what you're supposed to be using. So it's like, it seems like it's not a big difference to be, oh, I'm just, making it work on carpet, but you can cause a lot more of those chronic injuries, hopefully not, but even just that tightness because you're using things differently because of the floor. So just being a little more aware of modifying, not because you're going backwards, but because you are being wise with how your body is, so you can go forward.
Oh, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I love to do handstands anyways, and I love to teach them actually. I used to do them I did gymnastics as a little kid, so, and I'm always thankful for that, because I've run into so many dancers who don't know how to do inversions and have to teach them. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay, then here we go. So I think that's a really, this just reminding me I got to get upside down again. The whole idea of mobility and tightness. So, are you saying that because, obviously not doing what you're used to doing, you're losing that mobility? Is that what you're saying? Or is it, yeah? Okay, great. That was an easy.
A little bit, sort of. Yeah, definitely. I think in general, guys will have back issues if they aren't able to get their arm high enough without, there's not enough motion in there. Just not dancing or using it as much. You might be more in a tight place if you're not doing strengthening to help secure that. So it's more so in the fact of like, by using it, you're getting tighter, or you're not, you're just basically getting tighter as it goes. Like the capsule, the nerves aren't really opening up and kind of keeping that motion. So it's not necessarily like, if you're not doing a handstand, if you're not, lifting, you're gonna not be able to lift your arms because you're going to lack mobility. It's just more long-term. Keeping that mindset will help you as you're going there. Is that?
Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. Thank you for that clarification. Awesome. So I'll go back to Brianne then. And I guess I'm sort of thinking in terms of myself and just what I've been working on, having overdone a few things and having to pull back again. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Brianne, or if there's something, I know we shared a list, if there's something we haven't touched upon yet that you feel is like really, we have time, but that you really want to make sure people know.
One question that I think is kind of important from what I get frequently, that which I think is why dancers tend to have so many overuse injuries in general, is that they feel they can't take a break ever, because they're going to lose what they've tried to work so hard for, or they're going to lose something technique-wise, strength, whatever factor it may be. So I feel like that's an important kind of point to talk about, just because it's not necessarily just going to go away. So the skill that, it varies. If you're more of just a recreational dancer dancing once a week, that skill level might not be as ingrained as for, say, a pre-professional or a professional dancer who's maybe taking a few hours a day every day. So the skill that has been gained by the artist isn't just going to go away. So if you think about, even for example, riding a bike, it takes a long time maybe to ride a bike, but then once you get it, you're good. Like, I haven't ridden a bike in I don't know how many years, but I'm confident that if I got back on the bike, I would be okay riding the bike. So that's that skill level. That doesn't really go away. So for example, I can go into a bar class, do my tendus, my pliés, anything like that. I still know how to do it. My turnout might not be as good because I haven't worked and trained those muscles, but the skill is still there. So I feel like some dancers are really nervous that that's going to go away. The one factor, which is why a conditioning program during this time is so important, is the things like strength, the power, maybe kind of the coordination, the agility might decrease. And they've actually done studies that depending on what physical capacity that you're working on, whether it's strength or endurance, that might decrease in maybe like 30 days. So you have that time. It's okay to take some breaks, but you do want to make sure that you're still working on that, because then if you're going back to the studio, whether that's now or in the fall, you don't want to just go like 100% and then, okay, now we're stuck back at all of these injuries that we were trying to prevent back in the spring or even the previous winter. So that's kind of the one thing that I think people should really recognize, that a conditioning program is going to be really good and smart for them during this time, and that if they do go back into the studio, to take it slow. Kind of what Ricki was saying, it's okay to go back to the basics. That's not regressing. That's just, okay, I need to relay my foundation so that I don't cause future injury because I haven't been doing what I was previously doing. And I think that's important for dancers and performers to recognize.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, I can see it, I can feel it. I agree wholeheartedly. It's like I was like, oh yeah, I still know how to do triplet underturns and lame ducks and everything like that. I know what my teachers have told me, and I know I can't step out as far right now or whatever because the muscles aren't as strong. So what can I do? So yeah, and I think it is so scary for a dancer to be told you need to dance every day, and that breaks aren't allowed. But I think it's almost in a way proving to be if you want to have a long career in dance, you need to know when to honor the stillness and the breaks. And yeah. I mean, I love taking dance class no matter what the genre, and so I think thank you for sharing that. So I guess I'll go back to Ricki now. I'm trying to pinball here. Ricki, so I saw that you are focusing on different classes, like different elements every day when you teach, and your last one was, I think, arabesques, you said?
That's tomorrow, yes.
Oh, tomorrow, great.
So kind of touching on what Brianne has been talking about too as we go, that it's good to like keep working on strength. It's good to keep working on, endurance, but sorry, I want to, I guess, pause on that question and just touch on what you were just saying. Yeah. Thank you, Brianne, for sharing that, because I think right now, especially where there's a lot of other emotions during this time, and like especially for young dancers. And so I think it's really important to hear what you just said from a dance side, whether you're my age or growing up, and just know that, or just take that stress off. So I think that's really great. Sorry. Now coming back to what you asked, Sonia. Yeah, so some of the classes right now, I basically started this for myself because I was doing some things during quarantine with, dancing and taking our own bar and modified center and our own version of rehearsals via Zoom, which was a struggle. But it was good. And now we're off for this next month or so. And it's on me to have my own diligence to be exercising, and not just like from that cardiovascular side, but for health. But I want to keep growing in my own strength and my own endurance and power. So the way I broke it up for me is I saw there's 6 weeks here between now and when I start. And so having an element of cardiovascular at the beginning, some core, like a core circuit, and also like a warm up of different things. And then for myself, I've been adding in a different focus area. So a lot of feet and ankle strengthening, the first week. And then last week we did a lot of hip flexors, psoas, and also like maintaining turnout with your leg above 90. And so I've designed it for myself, and then decided I should open it up to see if anyone else wanted to join me. And so I have a few dancers who are also taking it. And so the way that I also wanted to break this up for them is that there's a different focus area each week, but I follow it up with, all right, so these are a couple of the exercises we went through. Why don't you continue with this on your own? We're going to focus on a different area, but don't just not do releves anymore. Keep that in each week. So it's a little bit of like a taste of what we're working on, so that for myself, I can keep up with my technique, but also, for dancers of all ages, well, middle school and up, that they have this strengthening program and something that they can continue with. And I hope that it's a little more fun to change of pace than necessarily ballet class, and still focusing on that from a dance mindset, but it's a little more well-rounded in that cross-training mentality with it, instead of just like, all right, taking a bar, which is great to continue with, but it's also good to have a different area. So
awesome. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm wondering now, again, if we want to, Brianna, I don't know if you have the list in front of you. I can move mine around, but if there's something else you would like to add, I do want to talk about the dance, being in a dance community at this time, and how, whether it's not in, and it hasn't been in the same room for so long. It's coming back, I know, but virtually. And then, I'm even just thinking about when I was with, Brian Magna and you guys for so long, why that's important, and even maybe touching on why it's hit dancers so hard. And if you've seen, I've seen it, and I can also speak from myself, and talking with other people, that it's really been a huge mental challenge for dancers in particular. Something that I don't think normal people would understand necessarily. So I don't know if you can speak to any of that, Brianne.
Yeah, sure. So I've actually been very impressed with just the dance world in general, because you think like our area is all physical. So now we're in this socially distanced, physically distanced pandemic. So what does that mean? That like, one, you've taken like all of our classes, we can't work in person. So there's that. Whether it's your social network. So there's the social community-based factor that I feel like a lot of dancers love. While our choreography might vary from a solo to a duet to a group piece, like we typically do it in a group. So, okay, we've taken away that social factor, and while Zoom is very nice, the three of us are able to like hang out right now. It's still, you're not getting that connectiveness that you normally feel. So then it's hitting not only your schedule's completely kind of like thrown off. Your social kind of networking has been physically distanced within a physical art form. And then like we identify ourselves as dancers, as movers, and as working together to create that. So then what happens when you kind of taken all of that away? I think we, like, dancers have just been really great and very like innovative in this time, but still it's not quite the same. And I think that's why everybody's been either hit so emotionally, and the statistics for mental health right now are increasing, because it's one affecting you, whether it's stress, emotionally, financially, all of those kind of components, because it's basically taken away a lot of, like, one, your income of, you can't perform. All of the venues have shut down. They're not allowing for things that are over maybe 10 people, maybe 50 people, maybe 100. So it's really kind of limiting on what we can do. And is it like, okay, is our season going to happen in the fall? So I think it's been really challenging from just a mental standpoint, in that way. I do think that a way to kind of combat that is sticking with a routine as much as you can. During this time, I've really tried, even when I was not working myself, trying to stick with, okay, I'm still going to wake up at this time, even though I don't need to wake up at 5 o'clock, I'm still going to. And then, and still like sticking with as much of a routine to make it feel like I'm still kind of like normal, if you will. And I think focusing on what you can control, because we can't control what's going on outside. So kind of what Ricki alluded to before, okay, using this opportunity for maybe self-care, focusing our classes a little bit differently. So then we still kind of feel like we're a part of something, working together. And then, so, because it's just gonna hit us emotionally, physically, all of that. So I think just making the most of it and being as positive as we can during this time, because with positive thinking can go a long way. Not that it can be a fix-all, but I definitely think that if you're utilizing this time, maybe refocusing how you're thinking about this time of just, okay, I'm gonna really use it for some self-care. I'm gonna take care of maybe some chronic injuries. Maybe I'm going to really focus on some corrections that I've been given continuously during my classes. Maybe I'm going to work on, okay, that cardiovascular component that Ricki was talking about before. I can focus on that now. So maybe I can control a component. So then when I do get back into the studio, that I'm maybe not 100%, but at least maybe 75, 50%, so that it's not like I have to do everything over from start. Yes. And I think that may kind of reduce some of the mental toll that it's causing on some dancers. I don't know if, Ricki, you have anything to add to that, but because you're also kind of in that situation from not just from a health professional standpoint, from like a dancer standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everything that you're saying, Brianne, is so spot on. And I think something that not a lot of people always think about or process through. But I love what you said about identity, because it's so true. In general, athletes identify themselves as their sport. But I think it's even more so with dancers, because it's also a mode of self-expression. So it's like how we understand ourselves, it's how we share who we are, as well as just like, you know, the physical aspect of it. And I think something that really helped me as we finished out our season was that, like, routine that you said, but also we had our routine together. So it wasn't just like for myself and waking up, but we kept, all right, 10 a.m. we meet on Zoom for a time of devotions, of just chatting, talking, seeing how it is, or maybe reading something together, or, you know, having that time of connection. And it's not the same at all, but having that like group of this is us, this is our time, really helped. And the other thing that really also I think helped me at the time, and has also helped me understand like why it's so valuable, is the fact that we're an artistic form, right? It's all about creativity. And so as dancers, it's like you can work on the physical side, but there's a whole other side of artistry and creativeness. And that is something that I think needs just as much value, even if it's like, I love seeing, TikTok videos going around, or, kind of a dance tag, like, let's just create. And it doesn't have to be an amazing product or even have a finished product. But I think the action of having something that you're creating together, even if it's, writing a story and not dance related at all. Like, I think that there's a lot of unity, but also a lot of, from a mental health or a self-care place, like you were talking about, that there's a lot of value in that. And that is something that, we can do as it is, and maybe even come out with fun stories at the end of this time. And it's a different form. So that's all I really have to add. I think I'm glad you brought this question up, Sonia, because I think it's something that is so important, yet not necessarily discussed or talked about.
Thank you. And I want to say also, as a choreographer, that I look to my dancers, the ones, whether I'm hired, or I am hiring, and who they are as people. I don't think I've ever hired someone just to do a fantastic pirouette into a grand allegro, whatever. My work takes so much creativity and thought, not just on my part, but that acknowledging who you are as a person is definitely, it just brings depth to the art form, and it brings to who you are as you're, a person on this planet. So that's from my point of view.
Yes.
So take the time, to honor those other parts of your life as well, because they will. There's going to be so many incredible stories. There are. Yeah. I performed. I got so frustrated at one point. I went down to Trout Brook, and I just had to perform, and there was some ducks and a dog, and I know they were watching me.
Love it.
Like, I'm gonna perform, and I did. I put it on. So cool. I know we're getting close to wrapping up, so I didn't know if there's anything else that you would like to say, and then I do want you to give the taglines of where people can reach you, and that we are going to be offering supplemental materials. So if you want to speak to that a little bit on the next sort of, timeline of this, and then getting anything else you want to share.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So just like for resources in general, I'm at Magna Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine Center in Avon, Connecticut. We also have a facility in Canton. However, we have a studio located in Avon, so we're really able to kind of fit and individualize our programs at our Avon clinic. And I think it's just important that everyone knows that we're available for in-clinic and virtual sessions, so you don't have to kind of come out if you're still not comfortable with everything, the kind of climate that's happening right now, or if you are, we're kind of socially distancing everybody so that everybody's spread out. And then we're here for whether it's just kind of a phone call with some questions. You can always email me directly at Brianne, BRIANNE, @magnapt.com. But we also have some supplemental kind of information on our website. We do a monthly blog for our Dance Medicine Network. And then we're just kind of here for any questions that you may have.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so I think just to add to the end here, what to take away is just how, there's not really a wrong way to use this time. There's a lot of right ways, but if you're wanting to focus on like healing an injury specifically, this is the perfect time to reach out to, Brianne, either virtually or in person. Like this is ideal if you're wanting to do more cardiovascular or more conditioning or anything like that. If you want to join me, you're welcome to. I'd love to have you. I'm on social media and like so Facebook, Instagram or you can email me. The Bar and Beyond, spelled like ballet bar. But I also just wanted to say that this time, I think as a whole is a chance to value, to be where we are. And, you know, if that is taking more time to be creative in other formats, if that's conditioning, whatever it is, and that when we come back to the studio, allowing that grace for yourself that this has been a weird time. Like, don't just jump back into everything. There's a resource that I'll include or will send along. There's a few, one with my Adams, and then I also found a really great outline of, all right, for the first few weeks, why don't you focus on this for the second, you know, phase of time, so you can kind of progress into reacquiring some of the skills, and then from there acquiring new skills, as opposed to trying to expect yourself to be right where you were when we left. This is a chance to gain new skills in other ways, whether it's strengthening or healing, but also just taking that time or that grace to come back safely and smoothly into the studio. So we'll include that resource for teachers, that you have that kind of simplified breakdown of what to focus on for phases as well.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's really important to remember that grace period, and that single person, whether it's in the studio or on the stage, or in rehearsal, has gone through all of this. They too are, you know, emotional, working on whatever. So, and I remember, you know, my best dance teachers, put your blinders on, you know, this is, you need to be your best self, physical, emotional, whatever, and everybody else has to too, and they're working on that as well. So yeah, I thank you so much for joining me, and we will make this available, and all the links will be on our website, sonyaplumdance.org, and we have an ongoing relationship with Magna PT and Ricki, and so we are so thankful for you to be here, and there we go. Enjoy the rest of the day and the warm weather, and yeah, I'm gonna go figure out where I want to do my tondus now.
Thank you, Sonia. This is great.
Good. I'm gonna